Good morning, everyone, and welcome to lecture number 4. Congratulations, you are about halfway through the semester now. Congratulations, yay! Now, as you know from the syllabus, we don't have a midterm. However, we do have our first really major assignment coming up, that is turning in your resume and cover letter, the final drafts of those. Although you will include another draft in the portfolio that we turn in at the end, that you will have the opportunity to revise if you feel like you need to improve your grade. So that is something that you can do. There you go. So this week we have the library research topic. We'll be looking at Lecture 4, which is what you're doing right now. Then there's Chapter 3 in the Kagan book, which is Social Sciences number 1. And then you'll be turning in your resume and cover letter on Friday. So, want to get into the library research topic. So, some of you may not have access to the library here at NDSU, but you do have a library near you, probably, or a college that has a library, or even a school that has a library. And you do have some online resources available to you at the library at NDSU. So this is the NDSU library webpage. There are lots of different things that you can find here. Say you're writing a paper on maybe our textbook, right? Get this fancy sweater loading thing. And you get lots of different results. So maybe we need to be more specific with this, right? So maybe I really just want to find out about writing in the social sciences. Aha! That looks like a book that might help us with our understanding of writing in the social sciences. Yeah? Maybe this one too. Probably not as much this one. It's a little old anyway. But that brings me to a point about books, right? So, in the library, generally, you will find more books than anything, unless you're looking at the online databases, which we will in a second. But there's a problem with books, right? Books are very reliable sources of information, but by the time they get to you, the information is often very old, if you think about it. An author writes a book, takes roughly a year. So when they start their research, if it's a short research project, generally it's going to be about a year. Some books take 10 years to write. But anyway, suppose it's a year, okay? So they send it to publishers, and publishers say, well, I like this, but you need to revise this section. So it goes back to the author. Say the publisher takes 6 months to do that, the author takes another 6 months to revise. So a year later, goes back to the publisher, and the publisher says, okay, we're going to send it out for editing now. So the publisher sends it to the editor. The editor takes 8 months to revise. Editor sends it back to the publisher. The publisher says, okay, we've got a good manuscript. Now we're going to distribute and print. Print and distribute. So then it goes to the distributor and the printer. It gets printed, sent out to stores. By the time that process is complete, it's another 6 months. Then it gets to the places where you buy it, maybe the bookstore, the library, these kinds of places, and the book is already 5, 6, 7 years old, at least the information in it, when it's brand new. So the problem with that is, even if you got very reliable information, things change, right? Think of how many presidents we could have in that time. So you can't just rely on books. If we look here, we need to triangulate our sources, right? So books are only 1/3 of that triangulation. We also need to look at academic journals and media. So what are academic journals? Okay, academic journals are periodical publications that are generally published by academic professional organizations like the Modern Language Association, whose writing style you've probably used before, or the American Psychological Association, whose writing guide you've probably used before. And they will publish a journal, and in that journal they release the current work that's going on in the field. And generally you get a pulse for the field when you're reading those journals. So they're a good source of information that'll be more current because it takes less time to produce a journal than it does a single monograph or book. Because it takes less time and it's still a reliable process, journal articles are one of the best sources you have for writing academic papers. But they're still going to be about a year old by the time they get published in the journal, because it still takes time to print and release those things. So the next part of that triad then is media. Media can be newspapers, it can be television, it can be magazines, especially quarterly or monthly magazines. Media can be any number of things where you get information. The Daily Show is media. Last Week Tonight is media. Right? So these are all places where you can get information. Now, the information is probably less reliable than either books or academic articles, but it's going to be current. And that's the difference, right? That's the advantage that media has over academic journal articles and books, because it doesn't go through the same rigorous process to determine its validity, its factual nature. It ends up being less reliable, but released very much more quickly and more up to date. So that's something you have to navigate when you're making any claim in a paper. You want to make sure that you can triangulate your sources so that you have at least 2/3 of the triangle filled, right? So if I want to say all grass is green, I need to find a book and an academic article that say all grass is green, right? Or a book and a media article, or an academic journal article and a media article, right? That's the standard of evidence that you need in order to really have a reliable claim. Yeah? A lot of people will find one source that says something and they will then cling to that, right? Because that's their smoking gun. That's what their whole argument turns on. But the problem with doing that is what happens when authors are discredited. What happens when your study is thought to be invalid. What happens when something happens and all of a sudden your one source that you had for something you know to be true ends up to be false? It can happen. So the more you can triangulate your sources, the more of those parts of the triad that you can get for every individual claim that you make, the more valid your scholarship will remain as you go along. If we look back at the library website, just doing the general search wasn't terribly helpful. But we have other options here. So we have find journals, right? And the find journals link takes us to a journal search. Maybe I want to write a paper on Hamlet. There's a journal for that called Shakespeare Quarterly. And the library will bring me right to a database that has that journal on it. Right? And now I've got all issues of that journal from the 2010s all the way back to the 1950s. Right here at my fingertips. Yeah? I can also search within that journal on some of these. So I want specific information about Hamlet. And now I've got 2,950 articles on Hamlet from Shakespeare Quarterly, which is a source that I trust. Yeah? I can combine that with a book on Hamlet, right? Or a news article on Hamlet. I can do a Google search and find the Wikipedia page on Hamlet, right? Now, I'm sure you've had teachers who have said, "Oh, don't use Wikipedia. Wikipedia is bad. Wikipedia is horrible." And they're right that you shouldn't cite Wikipedia, just like you shouldn't cite an encyclopedia article, right? But what you can do is go down to the bottom of the Wikipedia article and look for their notes and their references. This person has been very kind and given us many links to the references they use for their article. They've even given us some secondary sources. This gives you the names. Sometimes it gives you the ISBN number of books that you can use in order to do your research, which is amazing. It's a great tool. You've even got some external links. Hamlet at the British Library, Hamlet at the Internet Broadway database, Hamlet at the Internet Off-Broadway database, Hamlet public domain audiobook at LibriVox, right? Gives you several different texts. MIT's Shakespeare Electronic Archive, HamletWorks.org. These are all great sources that you found just with a Google search and by following the Wikipedia page, right? And you can use any of those sources as long as you verify their veracity. So it's a good tool, Wikipedia, then. But getting there, right? is just a Google search away. Now, you can also look at services, right? Lots of different things here. Yeah, if you want to use our library. You can also look here on the research, and they've got research guides. Now, these research guides are here to help you with your specific field. So, say your field is communication, right? You can look at databases that are specific to communication, right? And it's got it all here for you, just in links. It even tells you where in the stacks you can find books on communication, right? And it gives you the name and the email of your social sciences librarian, Al Bernardo, right? So this is a great resource for you that you find on the library webpage under Research Assistance, Research Guides, and you can look in any of your academic fields for information on how to do research. Yeah? So it's a great tool, and one that I hope you take advantage of. You should never underestimate the power of going to the stacks also and looking at the books, right? If you go looking for a specific book, often you will find books around it are very closely related. They may not even come up in your catalog search when you're looking for closely related books. So it's a really good tool then to help you find those closely related books. So yeah, it's a great way to do research. So the reason that we're looking at all of this research stuff, right, is that after our resume and cover letter, we're going to be talking about the IMRAD genre, and we're going to be talking about how to submit to journals, and then you're writing a research report for me in the IMRAD genre. So that's going to be one of the major assignments for the class, and it's something that you're just going to do in college, right? If you haven't already, writing research papers is one of the things that is really going to take up some of your time in college. Yeah. So, learning to do it well and learning to sort of obey the genre expectations of the IMRAD genre is really going to help out your writing of papers. So, what I would like to do then is just try to help you learn the sources that you have available for research. And so I hope that this has done some of that. So, for your daily writing this week, I would like you to respond to the third chapter in Kagan, which is Social Sciences 1. Social Sciences 1 begins to talk about some of the particular concerns of the social sciences. It begins to talk to you about the kinds of evidence that social sciences use. And it may help you to understand, if you're not a social scientist, how social sciences can come to conclusions without maybe some of the same rigor that natural sciences do, but with different methods that ask different questions. And I hope that you'll be able to disentangle that. So for daily writing, I want you to respond to that chapter. I would like you also to begin thinking about a research topic. So you can go to your research guide for your field and look for look through all of the journals that you've got, and a good way to do this is to just browse one of the popular journals and discover what's being talked about. The other thing you can do, which we'll talk more about later, is look for a call for papers in your field. So UPenn has a great website for this. But if you look through the various calls for papers, you will find that a pattern of what's popular for academics to do research on right now begins to emerge, right? So we've got girls' literature panel representing the border across cultures, performativity of evil characters in Anglophone literature, George Eliot at 200, white working class authenticity, African American film through Jordan Peele's Get Out, ethics still, Levinas in the 21st century, general call for papers, media literacy and academic research, diasporic spaces, natality versus immortality, the case of Frankenstein and the creature. So, as you scroll through, you'll see that there's a lot of conferences right now on multicultural topics. Yeah, we're trying to deal with migrant crises and deal with racism and deal with all kinds of different things that involve multicultural interactions. And so, because we're doing that, we have to confront that, and the academic cultures are struggling with that. Yeah, so I would like you to, as your second daily writing this week, try to analyze, if you will, what your field is talking about, and come up with a few ideas for your research topic. And lastly, again, I would like you to respond to this video. Let me know if it was helpful, if you saw things that you didn't see before. This week I will be grading some of the work. I've been waiting for other people to turn stuff in, so I'll be grading a lot of the work and getting you back some more detailed feedback. But there you go. So, again, your 3 daily works for this week. Respond to Kagan, Chapter 3. Try to figure out what your field is talking about and provide some evidence for that. Just a little paragraph like you've been doing. What is my field talking about? Where did I hear that? And those kinds of things. And then 3, response to the video. All right. We will see you next week.